Subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon to never miss an update.
There is a misperception that this is a very macho and alpha male industry. And I think movies like Bazaar and Wolf of Wall Street, portray a picture of us that is not reality. We are a very nerdy, responsible industry.
Hello, everyone. Today it gives me a lot of pleasure because I'm probably interviewing someone who's senior most in terms of designation, but not very senior in terms of her age. So I'm really happy to introduce the CEO of Edelweiss Asset Management, Radhika Gupta. Hi, Radhika. Thanks a lot for joining us.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the very unconventional introduction and very happy to be here.
All right, great. Radhika, to begin with, I want to tell a small story. When I was in my MBA and I entered my hostel room and there was this kid who joined me. Now I'm a Bombay boy through and through, never been to any other city before I entered my hostel. Now this kid comes in and he's a diplomat son. So he stayed in Kazakhstan, he stayed in Pakistan, he stayed in the US, he stayed in Afghanistan. So his stories are very different from mine. His influences, his cultural immersion is very different from mine, and I had a very good time over the next 2 years getting to know new music, new books, new stories, new heroes. Since then I've realized that diplomats kids have very colorful histories, and I always get attracted to people who come from those kinds of childhoods. And when I was doing research for you, I realized that you are also a diplomat's kid and you've also stayed in different countries. So take us through that, like what impact that have in your young mind when you were a kid. How did it shape your early personality?
So I think, we all take our childhood for granted, right? I think now you and I are having this conversation
Right.
about how amazing a diplomatic childhood is. And I can't agree with you more. I mean, whenever I have kids, I wish they have that kind of childhood, or they will not because their parent happens to be a professional living in Mumbai. But it is an incredible childhood. It's because of the stories you get, and it's also punch because you can travel to a lot of countries, right? All of us will have parents who are well traveled, we'll travel.
Right.
But traveling in those countries and growing up in them is very difficult. Firstly, you will never travel to a place like maybe Kazakhstan or Nigeria or Zambia, where I live. You're
Right.
not going to go on family holidays. I think when you travel, you don't immerse. You're there for a few days, you see the sights and sounds, and you eat a little bit of food. But we actually grew up in these places. I mean, we lived our day-to-day lives in these places. And the other thing, I don't know if your roommate told you, but there is a lot of change in a diplomatic household because you don't move from France to Italy to Germany because of the sort of diplomatic system and the way the government is very fair. You
Right.
move from good country or rich country to very poor country because countries are rated A, B, C, and you
Right.
basically move from A to C. So there is very sudden change in your life. You could be living in a super developed country like Denmark, where everything is out there and you see a lot of richness. And suddenly we move to a place like Zambia, which is, has, where basic facilities are not available, where if you need hospitalization, you need to go to South Africa. So the
Right.
changes are also very drastic. So I think it makes you very adaptable, and I think that's a blessing as a childhood. I mean, that is what it taught me. It taught me to be super adaptable. And when this lockdown happened, everyone was like, "How are you handling work from home?" I'm like, "I'm cool. I'm cool if you make me work from home. I'm cool if you make me work from Nigeria. I'm cool if you shift me from New York to Bombay." And that I think is a function of our childhood.
Radhika, what impact does it have in how you interact socially, how you make friends? Because when you're moving from country to country as a kid, you're also making new best friends every couple of years. And that is very different from how, even in films, how best friends are projected, bachpan se saath mein, they've grown up together. Now, that's not happening in your journey. So how does it evolve you as a social being as well?
It's very different kid to kid, and I don't think it's only glamorous, to be frank.
Hmm.
I'm a very shy person by nature. I mean, people don't believe it, but I'm a super introverted, super shy person.
Right.
And at least when I grew up, Kunj, there was no Facebook and no Twitter and email. So how, when I remember, I moved from Delhi to Nigeria, and I was in that teenage phase where friends are really important. Now
Right.
there's no to keep in touch with people, right? You start by sending letters to each other from Delhi to Nigeria, and quickly that fades away. My husband, for instance, who grew up in Bombay, has this notion of school friends, and he talks about how amazing they are and how close. I don't have school friends, to be honest. You move from country to country. It is also difficult because just as you've kind of made friends with someone, your parents are ready to move. So to be frank, I interacted with people, but I grew up not with many school friends. In fact, I have a family of my mother, father, and brother. I grew up with an exceptionally close-knit family. It's unlikely you'll find a family almost as close because we only had each other for
Right.
17, 18 years of our lives. But the good part of it is that you deal with people of all kinds of color, race, profile, etc. So I think diplomatic kids, in their adapting and talking to people, they can sort of talk to anybody and find their way.
Does it also push you to stay more indoors and study harder, work harder on your day-to-day work? Because you've been a topper throughout your journey. So what was the impulse for that? What were some of the things that drove you to excellence that early?
I like to give real answers to things. I have always been an ambitious kid. I mean,
Hmm.
I think since the age of 4 or 5, I've always sort of wanted to be the best. I am very influenced by my father. His career journey is probably far more aspirational than mine will be because he came from a small district of Saharanpur in a town
Hmm.
called Kango. I mean, quasi village. He was placed, I think, seventh in UPSC All India. I mean, it's, if there is
Wow.
something called the Indian dream, my father has lived it completely. I mean, didn't study in an English medium school and then cracked the foreign service interview. So I think it comes from there. And he's always had this belief that every generation should make the most of the opportunities offered to them. He uses the word quantum leap, that he says, if I made a quantum leap from where my father was, then you have to do that. So I think that was brought up to us very early. But one thing, and you asked an interesting question that helped me, is that when I was in my Nigeria phase and in all
Hmm.
this moving, you need something that kind of anchors you, because you move country to country, so you don't
Yep.
have friends. And teenagers are also very cruel, especially I think teenage girls. When you're not a very good
Absolutely.
looking kid, people are not very nice to you. And I am not good at athletics or art. I mean, I don't have any of these skills. Like, I'm a terrible dancer, a terrible singer, and I'm like the worst athlete that planet Earth could count. In fact, I remember in these games that they had in Nigeria, you know how they pick teams, ke soccer team mein you will pick a person. I was always the last person to be picked. I mean, that is how bad an athlete I
Right.
am. And so you have to find something to anchor yourself in. And for me, that was academics. I mean, you find some way that people will give you respect and something that you anchor your identity in. Now, good or bad, for me, that was academics. So I think by the time I left DPS and I was in 12 or 13 years old, I was like, okay, this is one thing I may be able to do well. So let me just do this.
Was there an attraction to ever become a diplomat like your father? Maybe get into civil services, take the UPSC exam as you grew up, because you were so influenced by him. How did you make that decision that okay, this is not something for me?
I don't know. There were a lot of career options. Dad would have loved. I mean, for years and years, at least till I became CEO, he was still like, "Arey yaar, tune UPSC na le liya hota, you were bright enough." And he was convinced. He because of his family background and the fact that he couldn't afford resources and all this, he joined foreign service late. I
Right.
think at the 24, 25, and that's always been a little bit of a regret. So he was like, "तू आती ना तो तू 21 साल की उम्र में आ जाती, तू पहले अटेम्प्ट में कर लेती." So that's a fatherly confidence speaking. So that's what he's always wanted. I don't know why I didn't go down that path, to be frank. I mean, it just didn't happen. I wanted to be a journalist for some time. I like to write.
Right.
And then I applied to college abroad, and I was a good student at math, and I was a good student at science and economics, and I just decided to apply abroad. I don't think it was so planned. I also is not, there are kids who are science kids and there are kids who are
Hmm.
math kids, and like, they're born engineers. I mean, you feel it in them when you talk to them.
Right.
I was not that. I was just a good student. But I didn't have any dying passion or anything that I loved. And I've just figured it out with life.
Radhika, when did you make a conscious choice to go down this road, to take up a business career, to do a business degree at Wharton? When did you make a conscious choice that this is where I want to go from here?
So when I applied to colleges abroad, and obviously I was pretty naive then, but when my mother and I applied, we looked at various programs, and there were kind of two options at that time,
Hmm.
right? Either you do economics or you do engineering, and you had to choose. Now, Wharton happened to have a joint degree program, which is a very small but very prestigious program in management and technology. And in your undergrad, it lets you get one degree in engineering and one degree in business. And I looked at this and I said, listen, I don't have to make a choice. This looks great for me. And it really felt like it was a fit for my personality. So I applied and I was fortunate enough to get in.
Right.
And I loved the curriculum. I mean, I absolutely loved the program. And I feel it reflects the kind of skill set you need today, where you need to be technically sharp. You need a solid engineering degree, but you also
Right.
need business acumen, marketing acumen, sales acumen. So I was very fortunate to go through that. And obviously, after that, the logical thought was to go into the corporate world. So that's really what shaped it.
Let's spend a little bit more time at your in your journey at the University of Pennsylvania. Now, you say that you were a shy kid, you're not very outgoing, you were studious, etc. But I see here that you did a bunch of things while over there. So you were a
Yeah.
president and founder at the Women in Computer Science Society. You were a editor in chief. So you found a way to realize your journalism dream to a certain extent with the Penn Triangle Engineering magazine. You were a teaching assistant as well. You ran your own restaurant as well. So we see a lot of people who flower in a particular course at a particular time in their lives, where they transform. What the person that goes in and the person that comes out are two very different people. So was this that period for you, and can you take us through how that transformation happened?
I would not say it was the transformation, it was the beginning of the transformation. And
Sure.
I think the transformation is still happening, and
Hmm.
happy to talk about that. I think the reason that it was the beginning of the transformation is that one, you have time and confidence. Once you've gotten into a school of that caliber, you have a little bit of confidence in yourself.
Right.
Secondly, there are so many options. I mean, Penn probably has 500 clubs and activities. Now, when I grew up and I thought of extracurricular activities in my school days, it was things like,
Dancing,
dancing,
singing, drawing. Yeah.
poets, and all of which I'm terrible at. So वहाँ
Right.
तो कुछ कर नहीं सकते. But here, Penn really gave you the freedom to figure out what you wanted to do. And if there was no club, they always said, well, create a club. Like I founded Women in Computer Science because
Right.
it was a cause that was important to me. I mean, there were 10% women in computer science and a declining number. And I've always been taught that, rather than complain about the problem, do something about it. So I started that club and I'm so happy that it exists even till today. I'm in touch with the guys and it's one of the highlights of college. I started the restaurant for an interesting reason. I didn't know how to cook before that. And me and my Hyderabadi roommate, we used to cook, and all these Indian boys used to come eat in our house and they used to not pay us. And we were like, dude, we are business students. I mean, we might as well make money out of this. So
Right.
I started it for that reason. But Penn gave you the freedom to express that. And also, you were living in a foreign country alone, and you had to do something beyond academics. So I think that's how it started.
Did you have the feeling at that time that you were in an elite global school, and that's a privilege in itself? And how did you fit in over there?
Yeah. Oh, I think everything about Wharton gives you the sense that you are in an elite global school and you feel very good about yourself. I think the minute you walk on the campuses, you see the buildings, you see the resources, you see the kind of professors. I mean, you have award-winning professors teaching you as an undergrad when you are sleepy and just go into class. So I think there is a tremendous sense of privilege. In
Right.
fact, I remember for graduation, my father came to campus for the first time, and I have some pictures of him sitting in the Wharton classroom. And I remember him being very emotional and very overwhelmed, and he didn't
Right.
attend any classes. But just the vibe of it makes you feel that way. You also study with the, a lot of the Indians at that time who went to Penn were from some of the finest families in the country. So you also have that. But the good news is two things. One is I have always grown up globally. So I've never
Hmm.
struggled to have global classmates, and that's
Right.
something that my background is afforded. The second is Penn has so many options. So even if you're a shy kid, you'll find your friend circle. There's not just one type of people. If you have a university with their 10,000 undergraduate students, you will find a group of people that works for you.
Right.
And so I think the scale also gives you that.
Radhika, we've noticed that a lot of people are very attracted to the career in consulting, especially consulting at a firm like McKinsey, and that's where you went after your Wharton School experience. That was your first job. Take us through that.
McKinsey was, I think my good fortune. But I did 2 summer internships at Microsoft. My
Hmm.
degree was business and engineering.
Right.
Like all engineers, you want to explore engineering. And I really enjoyed it. I was not a software engineer. I realized pretty quickly into software engineering, maybe 2.5, 3 years into it, that I like technology, but I'm not the coder. I mean, I'm just, that's not me. I
Right.
can't spend the rest of my life doing that. So I did program management in Microsoft. Microsoft. But when I thought about my career in my last year of college, the option was either to go back to Microsoft or pursue something else. I never wanted to do investment banking, which was the most popular thing to do, by the way, back then. I mean, a separate story
Right.
about it. But I wanted a career that was broad based, that gave me exposure to the corporate sector, but it also gave me the opportunity to work with very smart people, and also develop myself, because McKinsey did a lot in terms of self development for me. So that's why I said, let me try out consulting. Now, how did I choose McKinsey? You don't choose it. I applied to, I mean, it's a well-known story. I applied to a bunch of consulting firms and got rejected by everybody else except McKinsey. So I guess McKinsey chose me. I was fortunate.
So what were those early few months like at McKinsey? What intimidated you and how did you overcome that? Or was it a different journey for you?
I had the imposter syndrome more at Wharton than I did at McKinsey. And I think
Interesting.
having experienced something like because the Fisher program is very rigorous. I mean, it is the most rigorous end of even a school like Penn. So I think it prepared me for anything I've done after that. So I've never felt the imposter syndrome. I had that syndrome in college. And since you mentioned it, there's a really interesting incident. I remember, I think it
Please.
was my first business class at Penn. And so they ask you these questions, and the professor's like, how you doing? Well, so anybody who goes, like when I went to Penn, I was the class topper in Marymount, my school in Rome, and I felt very good. You have a certain vibe about you as a class topper. You own the school, all of that. So then he does some hand raising thing. How many of you are from the US? How many are you from a foreign country? Then he asks
Right.
one question to this class of about 250 students. He's like, how many of you were valedictorians or class toppers? And
All of them.
yeah, 95% of them raise their hand, and you suddenly look around and you're like, okay, then that
Right.
topper syndrome is gone. So I had that imposter syndrome in a big way then. And then you realize, and it's something I keep telling the story to my team. I told this in my last town hall, that you constantly have to up your game. I mean, there's a book called Good to Great, and I love the
Right.
expression that you're getting good in life, but you have to up your game again, right? If you get because life always throws you at the bottom of some totem pole. I mean, if there's a hierarchy in life, you've been the valedictorian of your class, but you're back again at the bottom when you start in college. And then again, you've done really well in college, you've gotten to McKinsey, but again, you're a fresh analyst again. So I think I realized that life always throws you back. You're always at the bottom of some totem pole, and you keep having to push yourself on excellent. I had the same imposter syndrome in a very big way when I
Right.
became CEO.
That the fact that you need to work hard on yourself comes with a lot of pressure. So how do you deal with that?
So I think and the message I always tell young kids, and I interview a lot of young analysts, is you have to realize that, when you buy into a job or a company or anything, you are sold the glamour. I actually thought I would be like a 20-year-old, 22-year-old suited kid consulting to like high-end companies. I mean, the notions in my head when I became CEO of this firm of what I would be doing, I was like, I am CEO. I mean, like, look, right? So you always see a version of the job or the role or the company that is very glamorous. Realize that is packaging, and it's going to be the way that is. But beneath everything, there is a lot of grunt. You ask, I have a friend who runs a very prominent film production company, and if you ask what goes behind shooting any of those glamorous songs, I mean, your heart will wrench. So I think you have to realize that there is a lot of crime behind the glamour, and you have to do the crime. I mean, it is just the reality of life, and there is no way to escape it, and that is what builds character.
Right.
I was watching the Indian team speak yesterday, and one word that kept coming up in the victory speech after the Australia test match was character. It was character again and
Yes.
again and again, and you just have to build. And I thought it was beautiful, because I think you have to build character, and sitting at the bottom of the totem pole builds character. I think the other thing, and is it is important to be humble. This is something you learn late in life, and it's easier said than done. Over the last year, for some of the work that we do for Edelweiss, I have interviewed a lot of celebrities, investors and non-investors. I've interviewed Vishwanathan Anand, some phenomenal people. And I think one thread that is common to all of them that strikes you, if you tell me, is humility. It is the fact that life can beat you down. You will have Tandulkar called this in a tweet, your 36 run moment in life, and you just have to stand up. So I think that also helps. So two things. I think one is realize that there is a lot of grit and grime behind the glamour that you will enter into. and that life will beat you down, but be humble about life. I think that really helps.
And today's social media platforms like LinkedIn and Instagram don't help the case, because there is so much jealousy you're constantly made to feel, because everybody is sharing the best part of their lives in exaggerated terms, and you're taking that as the only truth. And that's when then it starts hurting you even more, giving you more
Oh,
stress.
I can't agree more. I mean, Kunj, I had tweeted this some time ago that, and I had tweeted in the context of business. I said, when you plan businesses in Excel, they're a little bit like life on Facebook. They don't exist in reality.
Right.
And Instagram is not life. In fact, one of the things I've tried to do in my own social media profile is share a lot of the bad days and share a lot of the vulnerable days and share the days where I feel like I'm out of place and I'm sitting in a gathering and I just hate being there because I feel out of place and I feel lost as a shy person. And every time I do that, so many people reach out to me either publicly or privately saying, listen, I'm feeling the same way. I'm so glad you said something about it.
Radhika, let's get back on track. Let's talk about, you just mentioned some time back that you were like, I'm not going to get into investment banking. It's an
Yeah.
area you hate. At McKinsey, what was the moment when you decided that, okay, this is it. I want to get into, the world of finance. How did you make that decision? How did you take steps towards it?
So McKinsey is a 1.5 year, 18-month analyst program. So, I think about a year in, most people start thinking, okay, what next? It's a
Right,
training ground. For me, I didn't want to do business school. I had just gone through 4 years of education. That's a very standard thing that a lot of consultants do.
right,
And I got an opportunity to work at this firm, AQR Capital, which is the hedge fund I worked for, is started by M&T alum. It was a prominent growing hedge fund. And it was also a financial services firm that was very academic in nature. So it's a quant investing house. So it kind of blends money management and finance with technology. It was people I knew because the heritage was M&T and Ben, so that felt comfortable, and I felt it was a good chance to enter the world of finance and also bring both my degrees together.
right.
So that's how it happened.
And then what made you actually go deeper into the world of finance, start your own business within that same space?
So I did about 3-4 years at AQR, which I am very grateful for. I think great training ground because it was also a very interesting time to be an analyst then. We saw 2005, 6, 7, which were great years on Wall Street. I mean,
Beautiful years.
oh, what years they were. And, separate days for stories of the excesses and the good times and the bonuses on Wall Street and the learning, managing money at that kind of scale. And it's just incredible at that age. And then we saw 2008, which was a very, very tough time. So I
Right,
always say that I learned risk management in 2008 and I learned it live in 2008. And again, very, very transformative experience. I think 2020 has been a great year in terms of learning, but I think almost nothing is like 2008, at least for me personally, because I was young when I experienced
right,
it. And somewhere at the end of 2008, me and my husband, then Nalin, who became a partner in the business, and a third friend, Anant, who was a colleague at AQR, just started having this conversation that, listen, and मेरे को क्या होता है, because my father's moved every 3 years, मुझे कुछ itch होती है every 3 years कि कुछ नया करना है. My husband says this is a very dangerous itch that I
right,
have. So we
right,
started having this conversation कि what if we move back to India? At that point, India में mutual funds के अलावा there was no alternative investing happening.
right,
And we were 3 kids and we just decided we wanted to go do this. So we started putting a plan together. We started thinking of investment ideas that we would run, essentially adapting what we had learned at AQR, and Nalan was at Goldman to India. We started talking to SEBI, sitting there and trying to figure out, could this be done? In fact, our first wish was to open a mutual fund company, and then we realized we would never meet the requirements for a mutual
right.
fund business. So that quickly fell out of the window. But ironically, I'm running one today. So life comes full circle. But that's how we decided. And then one day we decided to resign and move back. I don't think you think that much at 24, 25. I mean, the only thing Nalin and I really thought is, okay, if doesn't work, we'll go back and do our MBA. Big deal.
So Radhika, there's another aspect to it, right? I understand that the business made sense and you want to start in India, but there is a larger picture here, which is about believing in an India story. As someone who's grown up completely outside India, has seen a very different market, which is a lot more mature, a lot more evolved. It has its own nature. What made you come back to India?
So there are two parts to this. One is I had not only not worked in India, I had never lived in India. I had done
Exactly. Yeah.
third, fourth, and fifth grade.
Right.
But I am the biggest India bull that you will find. I am very there these days. There are a lot of articles on people losing hope in India. I'm the biggest India optimist you can find. I am the daughter of someone who represented India in the 70s when foreign diplomats would just not give us respect, and I saw India's in the 90s when kids would tell me in American school, do you go to school on horses and do you see snake charmers and play with snake charmers? And then I saw the India of the post IT boom and post
Right.
Pokhran and all of that. So I mean, you can't find a bigger India optimist than me. And it's not optimism for the sake of optimism. I mean, it's backed optimism because I did leave a career there to come back here. That said, it is not as so. I've always believed in the potential of India. That's
Mm,
and
mm.
I think what I've realized is that there are two different opportunities in the US. You solve very very complex problems because you're really doing third order stuff, right? All the
Right.
basics have been done, right? You're really doing cutting edge stuff. In India, you're solving very basic problems, but you're solving them in huge size. I mean, you live in a country where people still are not opening demat accounts. So Pradhan
Yeah.
Mantri ji जाके कहना है आप जाके बैंक account खोलिए, where financial penetration is very very limited. So you are solving very basic problems, but at huge size and scale with the opportunity to make huge impact.
Right.
Now, if you label this and belittle this as, oh, it's not evolved, etc., then that is your problem. But for me, that is the opportunity. The US is a mature market, India is a story of growth. And I chose growth.
Radhika, it's said that we are again entering a phase like the heady times of 2004, 2005, 2006, where there is an entire generation that has made its entire wealth in those 4 or 5 years. And it is said that you look at the markets today and how the situation is. It said that we are again entering that phase where an entire generation is going to make its wealth for the rest of its life. How do you see the post-COVID response of the markets? I'm asking it from a viewpoint of a young guy who's just going to embark on his career at such a time. That how do you see things evolving over the next 4 5 years, and what are some of the things as a young early career guy I can bet on?
Rashesh and I were having a conversation yesterday.
Right.
And, I think both of us could just feel the optimism in each other's voices about the post COVID world. I think one of the things that the post COVID world has taught me is that humans and India is so resilient, right? In March, when I was doing budgets for this financial year, I mean, I'm laughing at the budgets I did then because everybody thought the world is ending and, when will we get out of this? And
Right.
you look at 2020 for us, for my business, it has been the best financial year we've had in our history, right? And that's how, I mean, literally, again, I go back to a cricket match. Like you start at 36 not out, 36 all
All
out, and
out.
you end so differently. So the
Right.
beginning and ending, I think, can be very, very different. I think that's the story. And I think there's another very powerful story that, and I see this in my own business. I'll give you an example in the pre-COVID world, and I joined as the CEO of a young AMC, there were
Right.
lots of things you wanted to do, but you just cannot do them because there is standard industry practice, right? And there's a lot of resistance. With COVID, what is standard industry practice has been thrown out of the window, and all that stuff is changing. So even for me now, I keep saying we are going through Edelweiss AMC version 2.0 because we can really say, okay, this is what we want to do. We don't care what standard industry practice is, all bets are off the table. And I think for young people, and Barack Obama said this in one of his commencement speeches, I mean, you
Hmm.
really have, this generation really has the opportunity to pick up in post-COVID because all bets are off the table.
Let's talk about your journey into Edelweiss. You started your business, you ran it for a few years, and then your business got acquired by Edelweiss, and you joined
Yeah.
as CEO. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely.
I want to know what that journey was like.
Sold the business to Edelweiss. Sold it because we wanted more growth. Very happy that we sold the business in retrospect. I think people tell you anytime you want to do something different, people tell you, okay, it's a bad idea. See, a financial services company sale is very different from a tech company or a product company. You don't just sell a website and move on. The
Right.
promoters of the company continue with the employer. So the decision has to be as much a cultural fit as it is a financial fit. Finance is not the only parameter. Spent 9 months making the decision, met lots of people, finally chose Edelweiss not for the money, contrary to what people think, but because of the cultural fit. I think Rujan, who was an ED at Edelweiss, and when he was handling this merger, he said, I don't see this as an acquisition. I see this as a partnership. And that's what it was like. And Edelweiss, the best place about this, and I tweeted about this, is it is one of the companies in India that really takes young people seriously. It gives, and I'm not the only example. There are many examples before me and will be after me, who give young people a tremendous amount of responsibility and let them fly with it. And in financial services, which is an industry that is so colored by work experience and years of experience and age, etc., etc., it's not tech, right? It's a regulated public-facing industry, which is an
Right.
industry of trust. For a firm like Edelweiss to do that as a homegrown thing, I think it's incredible.
Speaking of hiring young people and giving them big opportunities, you've been given one of the biggest opportunities in the company to become the CEO of a company at a very young age. Uh, I want to understand, when you look back, Radhika, what has played a bigger role in you becoming a CEO at a young age? Would you say that it's because of the fact that you've got so much international exposure, you've studied at the top schools, you've worked at some of the top companies all over the world, or is it because you started something of your own and you made it work? Between these two, what would have had a bigger contributing factor in you becoming the youngest CEO, one of the youngest CEOs in the country?
So I've never analyzed it. But if you ask me to think through it, I would hope the second is more important.
Right.
I take nothing away from my pedigree or exposure and all of that. It's fantastic. But ultimately, we are running businesses, and I
Right.
think you have to show demonstrated capability to succeed in a business and lead a business. And leading a business is not just about managing money; it's also about interpersonal characteristics, which is why I think actually, if you look at it, both things combine. I think one of the things that I was told before I took on this role is that it's not a standard CEO role. Mutual fund is a very public business.
Right.
Everything from my compensation to my financials, it's public. It's heavily regulated. There is a large presence of media, and it is a retail business where consumers trust you with their money. So I think how you conduct yourself, and my bosses told me this before I took on the role, is that you will be our face to regulators, you will be our face to media, you will manage a large team at a young age. So I think more than what you know, how you conduct yourself and how you build yourself, despite the proposed limitations of your age, is very, very important. So I remember being told that a lot, and I've always remembered that. And I think in some level, I always credit my father's diplomatic background, because
Right.
we were taught to conduct ourselves and hold our own. I was probably 15 or 16 when my father was having dinner with the Zambian president, and he would take me for that dinner, and we were just taught to conduct ourselves in a certain way.
Radhika, you've seen finance talent across the world. You've seen finance talent as a student, as someone who's been a professional in some of the top companies abroad, and now as someone who's running a business as a CEO in India. What are some of the things that you feel are lacking in finance talent in India compared to what you see abroad?
Sure. So I'll make two comments on that before I answer the talent
Sure.
question. We do hire young talent. And the other thing that we do is we take talent that is young. It's not fresher talent, of course. It could be 5, 7, 8 years into the job, but
Sure.
we give them very senior roles that they may have not played before. So our head of marketing, Niranjan Avasthi, has never come from a marketing background. Our head of sales, Deepak Jain, was a zonal head, but he's never led national sales. Our head of Bombay was an RM in Delhi, Varun Sanan. So all these guys are talented guys who've done well in their domains. But if you count their past years of experience in the domain, or do they have the label before, we give people the labels. We make them have the labels. Just like
Right.
I was a fresher CEO. We make fresher heads of marketing. We make fresher heads of sales, and we are very proud of that. And we give them the room to succeed because I think we believe in the people and the attitude, not the label that they've had. And in fact, I think I was reading an article by HPS that why rookie CEOs do well. I think rookies do well in a lot of things because they have a tremendous hunger to prove themselves. So that's one. As far as fresher talent in India, and we are committed to adding more of it. I don't think India lacks in finance talent
Hmm.
compared to any part of the world. I think there are things that we can get better on. We are very, very sharp technically. I think the softer side is something that we can constantly work towards. Communication is usually something that has a lot to be worked on. I would say that. So I would encourage analysts not just to focus on the hard side of finance, but how you also articulate what you do. I think finance is a little bit of a misnomer because we believe it is a very complex field, and the more technical jargons you talk in, the better you are, and college teaches you that kind of stuff.
Yes.
It is actually about, because finance doesn't exist in a whole, it exists for the consumer, and it is about simplifying your message and your products for a consumer base that is not very financially literate, because our consumer base is not nearly as financially literate as an overseas consumer base. So that's what we're trying to do. And I think they always say that you know something really well when you can explain it in simple language. So I would encourage fresh talent to work not just on their hard skills, but also on their soft skills.
Okay, Radhika, I'm now going to put you in a spot. Between a finance MBA, a CA, and an international CFA, what are some of the skill gaps that you see? Who's better than whom, in your opinion?
I love CAs, firstly. I absolutely love CAs. I think they have tremendous grit and the ability to work hard and get into detailing. And I think MBAs can learn a lot from the CA community out there. I know a lot of CAs in my
Right.
firm, and we hire quite a bit of them. I love CAs. So, I mean, I am an unabashed, lover of CAs. I think if they get a little bit of the polish, right? With their grit, hard work, and ability to get into the details, CAs are unstoppable, in my opinion. So, and I'm not a CA, nor is anyone in the family a CA. Second, CFA, good program, very, very focused on investment management. Probably should be supplemented with a CA or an MBA degree, but good program. My husband happens to be one of a CFA. He did it in the US and has done it
Right.
in India. And I think good mix, very, very well lent for investment management. MBAs, again, I know people make lots of statements about MBAs. I think somewhere you have to find a bridge between an MBA and CA. I think the CA gets the right balance of going into details, and an MBA has a lot of polish. I think the ideal individual is a blend of both for finance.
So an MBA in finance is typically lacking in technical skills or depth of knowledge or rigor in that
No,
sense. Is
it's
that a
not.
fair
It's not
assumption?
depth of knowledge. It is, a CA puts you through the grunt, and it puts you through the hard details. I think
Right.
sometimes what happens is, and I don't want to generalize, when you hire MBAs, expectations are like what my expectations were at McKinsey.
Right.
I'm going to do all the fun stuff, and I'm going to do all the high level stuff, and I don't want to do the basics.
I'm
I
going to
think
be the CEO tomorrow. That's the MBA
yeah,
ambition.
you said it well. I want to be the
Right.
CEO tomorrow, and you should be ambitious. By the way, I'm super pro ambition,
Right.
but there is a time and there is a ladder that goes through in life, even if you want to skip it early. I think CAs don't make a big deal about doing that, and they do the hard yards, and they become CEOs also.
Radhika, you mentioned a little bit about the Jan Dhan Yojana and how the Prime Minister has to request people to open their bank accounts. Now, you would think that that is a urban versus rural phenomenon, but it is more than that, right? Like we see a lot of young kids being very irresponsible with their money. There is a culture of saving in India, but there isn't a culture of investing in India. Today, there are about 2% people who have demat accounts in our country. Now, that is compared to the US, where about 55% of the population has a demat account. So, just to give you an idea of how much investing is taken seriously in India. So, why is it that young kids are not investing more, figuring out their becoming financially independent sooner? And what is it that needs to change for that?
I think the one kid thing every young person can do is start saving early. One, start saving early. Some people don't, right? Because we're a millennial generation and we like to
Right.
spend, and so many things to spend money on. I mean, I think saving early in my own journey, the one, and I did a lot of stupid things as a kid when I was in my 20s financially. But the one smart thing I did is I actually started saving early. I mean, I wouldn't have been able to start Forefront Capital if I didn't have the savings that I did.
Right.
So start saving early and learn the basics of investing. And having a finance degree, unfortunately, doesn't teach you the basics of investing that you have to learn. I think the basics of personal finance are actually less finance, a lot more personal and behavioral. So start with a small amount of money. I mean, don't let money sit idle in your bank account, right?
Right.
And the other thing I would say is, I talk to a lot of young kids, and the first question they'll ask me is about Bitcoin or What a technology fund I run. And I love my technology fund, nothing like that. But get the basics right here. Move money from your bank account into a liquid fund. Save the tax that the government is legally letting you save through tax saving products.
Right.
Do your basic SIPs into equities. Get started. Start with 5,000 rupees. I'm not saying that if you have savings of 3 lakhs, start with 5, 10,000 rupees, because you don't need a large amount of money to do this, right? So that you can make mistakes, you can learn what your risk appetite is, what your personal finance preferences is, and hopefully by the time you're 30, you have made all your mistakes, but you haven't got great income because you really make money in your 30s and 40s, and then you'll do well beyond that.
So Radhika, I'm just thinking about this. What happens is that, you don't realize the difference it's going to make, because it's a long-term thing, right? Like the difference is going to make in your wealth. So a person who's looking after his personal finances well, and a person who isn't, over a 10-year or a 15-year time frame, what will be the difference in their lives?
Oh, it's massive, and I mean, all compounding math tells you. There was a small example that I had tweeted about, that if you take a person who I think has invested $2,000 for 6 years, and then he does really nothing, and then one person who delayed the decision and invested $2,000 after 6 years, and he did it for some 15, 20 years, the guy who started 6 years early actually has done better than the guy who kept working for 20 years. That is the magic of compounding. If you
Right.
don't like this example, please take another example from a different domain called whiskey. If and I know all young kids are interested in whiskey and wines, etc., etc. So I learned this from a
Right.
distillery in Scotland. I don't drink, but please go check the price of a 12-year-old bottle of single malt and a 30-year-old bottle of single malt. The 30-year-old bottle of single malt, and when you go from 12 to 18, like you add age by 15%, the price actually doubles. If you go from 18 to 23, so you add maybe 25% to the age, the price again doubles. If you keep adding later in life, compounding kicks in beautifully. So you check it in whiskey prices if you don't believe investing. Investing is just the same.
Radhika, you've seen workspaces in the US, in India, both very different markets. What are some of the challenges that are unique to women in the workplace that you've seen at these two places?
So, firstly, the US on this parameter is just as bad as India. I think, in fact,
Right.
India is better than the US. Our history of women in financial services, at
Hmm.
least we had some of a legacy of banking CEOs. I think with Jane
Right.
Fraser, the US has just got its first one. But I think in financial services, we have such a long way to go. In my own industry, between CEO, CIO, sales head, all the 4 5 leadership positions as an asset manager, there are about 40 asset managers in the country, 45.
Right.
We have 200 odd leadership positions in this country. Less than 5 are filled by women. And outside of KV Kamath taking care and mentoring a group of women who became bank CEOs, the story is the same in all aspects of financial services. So I think, the fact is that we're not in great shape and we have to get better. And in fact, I think finance is a great career for women. It is one of the most professional industries in the country.
Right.
In terms of safety, in terms of the basics, it's one of the easiest industries. I mean, I talk to my friends in manufacturing or in film or in those lines of businesses. I think we have it much easier. There is a couple of, I think there are a couple of things that hold us back. One is there is a misperception that this is a very macho and alpha male industry. And I think movies like Bazaar and Wolf of Wall Street, portray a picture of us that is not reality. We are a very nerdy, responsible industry. And in money management, I know that people are simple people who have responsibility on their shoulders of managing public money. And man or woman, I think we are very, very accepting. It's not the alpha male, irresponsible industry that the media makes
Right.
us out to be. And it's not an industry where you need to sit on Bloomberg terminals and talk stocks all day to do well. I think you need to work hard, you need to be adaptable to change, and you need to have really high emotional IQ, all of which women have. So I think that's one misperception. We are also not an industry that discriminates or has extremely long work hours. We do lose a lot of people in their mid 30s, and I think that is something that we have to keep working on. But it is a great industry for women, and I just hope we have more and more of us in this industry.
Radhika, I think there are two things I feel that that limit the involvement of women in this industry currently. Is this legacy thinking that men are better at math than women.
Yeah.
and
I mean,
finance is a field that is driven by math, and that sort of causes a limitation. And the other is also the fact that you mentioned that Wolf of Wall Street kind of a, the thing that they keep saying is that, in finance, if you have to do well, if you want to be at the top of the pile, you have to be that kind of a ruthless, high risk, coke induced kind of a person, and that's the only way to do well in a finance career and make it really big.
so
uh,
bizarre because money management is about protecting people's hard-earned
Exactly. Like
money.
one of the
And
first things that they teach you in your chartered accountancy course is the idea of conservatism in terms of how a transaction is recorded. And yet, at the highest level, that's what it becomes. So I
I
think,
mean, you just think about it, right? If you wanted someone to manage your money, would you want the wild, coke-induced, glamorous person, or would you want the person who's responsible and conservative with your money and take sensible risks? What kind of money manager would you want? And
right.
I think the answer is absolutely black and white. And to your first point, yeah, I know there's a perception that
Hmm.
men manage money better. Who managed your household expenses and still managed to save money and still managed to take care of all the kids?
Right.
And still saved money on the side that came out during demonetization. I think it was your mother or grandmother. So
Right.
Indian women have been damn good savers and budget keepers for generations and generations.
I think you spoke about also somewhere that,
Yeah.
how moms are great managers and we just don't give them enough credit. It's amazing that in our GDP calculation, the contribution of a mother is never recorded, whereas, that kind of a mother does not exist in other cultures and they may not record it in their GDP calculations, but in India, that kind of a mother exists. And I appreciate you bringing up that point. You care to elaborate a little bit on that as well?
No, mothers are the CEOs who never get promotions and bonuses and don't have to make press releases about how good they are. But they are great leaders because they manage so many different people in the house without doing a chai. And they'll, manage the boys growing up and making the girl look presentable. And my mother used to handle my father's diplomatic parties while running a full-time career as a school head. So they do all of that. They are great at customer experience. They'll make five different dishes for five different people, even if they can't do it because they want to keep everybody happy. They don't want to just feed everybody. No mother says, "Acha, kitni dal khai tumne?" She says, "Dal kaisi lagi na?" They
Right.
want to make sure every customer has a great experience, and they are fantastic at budgeting. I mean, look, forget mothers. I mean, please remember the best memory that came out of COVID was feminine leadership. Jacinda Ardern, Anna Marin, Angela Merkel, the leaders of great countries that haven't handled COVID well happen to be women around the
Right.
world. And
Right.
they managed houses and they led countries through COVID. So if we can do that, then I'm sure we can handle finance. We don't do rocket science.
Can you touch upon a little bit about mentorship, especially for women? Like, how do you think we can create a culture of mentorship where senior women in the country are mentoring younger women with high ambitions, especially in fields like finance, even in the manufacturing sector, even in sales, where we see a challenge, where we don't see enough women coming in?
See, look, mentorship is important, but it also has practical challenges. I mean, to be honest, women write to me, and hundreds of women write to me with mentorship opportunities, and I can't take care of as many as I would nearly like to take care of. I try to do it through my talks and videos.
Right.
Because I have my first responsibility is to women in my own organization, which I'm trying to fulfill. I think what you have to try and do is seek out a mentor that has time for you, man or women. And a woman doesn't need to be mentored by a woman, it can be a
Right.
man also. Women is great. Find someone in your own organization, and ideally someone that is accessible to you, maybe 3 to 5 years senior to you, because mentorship works when both people can put in the time to it. And I've realized the challenges with time. I think
Right.
we've tried this thing called mentoring circles, which we are just doing in Edelweiss AMC, where we are having mid-level women mentor junior women through these mentorship circles. And we are finding people are really opening up in these circles and talking about things. So that's one effort that we've just started a few months ago that seems to be working well for us.
You spoke about how because of your dad, every 3 years you have this restlessness to try something new, right? You're a diplomat's kid. You've been in Edelweiss now for 6 years. Where do you go from here?
So I'm not leaving Edelweiss. I'm very much here. I did 3 years running my multi-strat for my hedge fund business. Then I have done a few years as AMC, and I think I've done version one of AMC, which was kind of getting the basics in place. I was just telling my team in the town hall. Now we start version 2 of AMC. So I'm not shifting jobs and not shifting countries, but within the same opportunity in the post-COVID world, embarking on I think we did the getting to good journey in my first stint. I'm hoping we are starting the good to great journey.
Thanks a lot, Radhika, for your time. This has been a very enlightening session, not just for the students, but for me as well.
Thank you so much.